Hello, how are you? Hello, everyone. Hello. There was a quiet moment, so I took advantage of it. Right. We're going to set up the class in two separate classes, okay? We're going to have a beginner and advanced class, but it doesn't mean it's like advanced. It's just if you know how to pose even basically, then that'd be fine. Or if you're like right in the middle, go to the beginner, and whoever's less might fit you best. So we'll kind of toggle between all of them, but we want to make sure to give you guys the most out of the classes. So how did I set it up? Tori, you're in advanced with me today, and Courtney's in advanced today. Sam is going to be with Nikki in the beginner. We're going to go beginner over here on this room. And it's really not, again, it's not like super advanced or anything like that, or super beginner. So, but if you are super beginner, that's okay too. So, okay, is anyone competing here in the next 4 weeks? Okay, just you two. You get probably pretty good odds of winning then. There's 2 people in all of the state. Okay. So maybe you two that are competing, maybe we'll stay here. Okay. And then, have you posed before? Yeah. Yes. Okay. And then anyone hasn't ever posed at all? Okay, cool. Go over here this side. All right. Cool. Other than that, so if you guys are all ready, Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then we'll split up. So we have the guests here at Angel Competition Bikinis, Kara and Savannah. You guys want to split up rooms? Ashley's going to be posing today with us, but she'll help out as well. So if anyone beats Ashley here today, they can get a free seat. The odds are low. I think the odds are okay. But Ashley just won the Wasatch Warriors. She's got 33 wins now, and she's getting ready for Pittsburgh. So we're actually doing like check-in today too a little bit. So how do you feel? You got carbs? You had some carbs in you recently, so you're feeling all right.
I haven't been depleting that much yet.
Sleep's not so great though. So hopefully we have some energy from Ashley. We'll see. But so if you guys don't know the staff, Tori's known me 8 years, 7 years. 7 years. She made it. And then only woman in my life to last that long. Nikki.
There is a lie.
Nikki, she's been with us over about a year now? Yeah, about a year now. Pro wellness competitor. Started off in bikini too, so if you guys have any tips or questions about that stuff. Obviously Ashley is going to be helping too, but she'll be participating. Courtney, been with us a couple years now, bikini competitor, national level top 5 twice. A few times, 3 times. 4 times top 5.
Yeah. Almost.
Yeah, and then Sam, you guys all know Sam helps with training with Ash, 4 days a week here, going to be 6 years? 6 years? So, yeah, so anyway, you're in good hands. Any questions, ask, feel free to DM them, send them up for posing sessions, whatever. Oh, Anya's here now. Anya's here too. Okay, you guys know. So Anya will be here in the, where should we put her? Advanced or beginner? What do you want to do, beginner or advanced today? We'll put you in, wherever there's more. We'll put you wherever there's more. But she's a Bikini Pro, top 5 3 times, already a Bikini Pro. And yeah, you're in good hands here. So, alright guys, we'll get split up. So split up however you think, and then we'll go over here. So beginner is in this room over here, advanced is in this room over here. At the end of this, we're probably going to go outside and do one big show. Full mock show. Okay? We'll do this for just a few minutes, guys, so you guys get a good understanding of what's happening. I always like to do this because the sport's constantly evolving. You can come to one of our posing classes and go to a show 5 months later and your posing be totally different. Okay, it changes all the time. Luckily, I get to see a lot of pro shows. Ashley's had a lot of pro shows. She's got a really good eye for it too. And we can see the things evolving like step by step. Usually it's like step by step. It's like arms go out to start going in, to start coming all the way into back to going out, hands going high to hands going low. Like it's like little things like that. So as of now, I think this is the current posing, unless I've missed something, which I doubt we have. So this should be exactly what current is at this point. Okay, so going into the criteria, first let's go ahead and go into the front pose. Okay, so we're in the front pose here, and there's a few things that we're looking for that have kind of changed too. If you look back like a couple years ago, and some of you might not even realize this yet, but a couple years ago the girls were a lot more profiled, so I'm going to show them actually how it was more like this. Okay, so like these little subtle changes, and you won't even notice it unless you're like really, really knowing it. But I always recommend look at the Olympia, look at the Arnold, look at the top girls. How they're posing is how you want to do it. And it's always being updated for you. And then watch the pro shows, and that's going to carry down to the amateur level. Okay, so now we're a little bit more opened up, and the reason is we're showing more shoulder width these days. So you should be looking for good shoulders, a tiny bit. Now they're going to say like the criteria is going to say like no shoulder capping, but there's like a soft shoulder capping. This is definitely like a soft insertion to the shoulder capping. You don't want any hard graininess, any crazy separation, but a little bit of a kiss of detail, kiss of capping is okay. Right? So obviously a more muscular, Ashley's would be more of the athletic bikini type, which is what most girls aspire to be. They want to be that athletic bikini type more so than like the curvy bikini type. This is kind of like the sought after look for most people. So good shoulders, arms aren't too developed, right? But they're there. There's a good tone to them. Flat stomach without too much detail in the core. So you want a little bit of a kiss of detail, like some kiss of abs, but not like crazy abs, like crazy detail, thick abs, right? So anyway, let's go ahead and go into the posing. So shoulders. Okay, one of the habits you're going to find yourself doing is you're going to see yourself leaning. A lot of girls will like push with their hips if you want to push your hips, and then the shoulders will kind of lean with it. That's exaggerated, right? But that's what happens. So flat shoulders. Let's start there. You're going to start with your shoulders almost all the way completely straight, as close as you can without turning your body completely straight, right? So you're kind of finding this happy balance of twisting your core to having your shoulders nice and wide. And then you're just flat here. And then you're going to go down to your core, and Ashley has like kind of a middle ground, what she does with her core. You want to explain what you do with your core there and how you're holding it?
Probably not best to ask.
Okay.
But it's probably going to depend on your own structure, I will say. Some people will have to suck it a little more upright. Some people kind of picture it as like pressing their belly button against their spine. So that, it's maybe ask also like Tori how she explains it, because we're probably different in the way we control our abs.
So in the core thing, you want to have a flat stomach, like a small stomach. So there's a point though where if you like suck in too much, like your ribs will expand, and so then your ribs kind of come out, and then you can look kind of ribby. So one of the things I always say is pose so you never look skinny, but pose so you look lean. Okay. So the difference is the whole bunch of ribs are showing because you're sucking in. It looks skinny. It looks like you're just sucked up. You don't have all that muscle. So find the balance between the two, where your stomach is flat, where you still have a little bit of definition on your abs, but you're not like all ribs. Because obviously your stomach can get smaller if you did vacuums, but you would look weird on stage, right? So but there is some vacuuming happening. So it's like right in that, find that balance that works for you, where it's perfect for you, and it's going to take some practice. So, okay, back into the pose here. Now, is there anything else you're doing with your legs in this pose? Maybe you want to explain?
Sure, yeah. So my back leg is basically holding on my weight, and it's holding like, for example, I could pick up my foot and it won't really matter if I wanted. This is just kind of a little extra balance, but my weight is basically shifted onto this leg. And just like you mentioned before, make sure you're not overdoing it like this, because it definitely makes your glutes look bigger, but that's not necessarily the most important thing. And then it's at the sacrifice of your midsection, because like this you're just gonna look thicker, but your glutes look bigger, right? So it's like one of those things you gotta play around with. Everyone's gonna be a little bit different. Even though it is bikini, it isn't all about the glutes, it's about symmetry. So just keep that in mind, because the more you push onto this hip, your glutes gonna be bigger, but your torso is not gonna look as good. Your shoulders might drop. You're gonna look more crunched up rather than tall and statuesque. So.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's changed with bikini a lot, is they're pretty much standing completely upright in that front pose now. It used to be like a good amount of push, but now it's like you're pretty much upright, keeping your core tight. And now something that you guys wanted to aspire to be at is having detail in your core. Now luckily Ashley's like close to show shape here, so it really helps. But some of the detail that you want to see is this line here coming all the way down, right? You should see, like, if you're in condition, and now not everyone's going to reach this level of conditioning, depending if you're like a curvier type bikini girl, you're a softer type, you probably won't reach this level of conditioning. But a good key is having this line like all the way in. That's like a good key of detail for like coaching. I look there, and I look on the lower back. There's all these little signs here, and that's like, this is a high level of conditioning. You can see some roundness to her hamstring. How it's like I've got a little roundness to the back of the hamstring, a little bubble of muscle on the back. So this is something to look for in terms of like what your conditioning should be like. And when she's in her front pose, again, you'll see that roundness. So the roundness here, the roundness of the glutes. Now this arm, the key part of it, a lot of girls will have this arm like out because they want to have their shoulder showing more capping. That was like a thing that was happening a lot before. Now all the arms are just straight down. They could still turn a little bit to create some shoulder, but it's not really necessary. Each girl is different, right? Okay, so that's the front pose. The feet, go ahead.
And also make sure you're not lifting up either. I still see a lot of girls try to do that. It's almost like a little mix between figure and bikini posing. A lot of girls will do, because they want to appear tall or bigger up top, so they're like overcompensating, and they're like doing this, and they don't want to see that. And I think a lot of times too, people kind of are just like, well, if I just stand there, my glutes are going to get covered. That's probably something you need to work on, like with your lats, because if you don't have lat development, then you will just kind of hit. It'll kind of look like this. Whereas, like, if you have good enough lats, you can just stand upright, and my arm just naturally falls out of the way. I'm not really forcing it. That's just where it falls, because I have the lat to kind of push it outward, right? And if I didn't, it'd be more like this. We don't want that, because we don't want to cover our glutes at any point. So always keep that in mind too, is like, there are more than one judge, right? So, and you might be looking at yourself in the mirror and like, yeah, my glutes aren't covered, but the judge over there, he's gonna see something like this. He's gonna see your glutes being covered. So don't cover up your glutes, but at the same time, make sure it's, not too far out like this, and don't overcompensate like that either.
Yeah. So, another good point what Ashley was saying is, for a couple years, well, for about 18 months, people were doing this with their lats. You can see some competitors just had a lat flare to them. Like Issa's kind of the one that when she won, she was kind of more like this, right? And it became like a thing. Everyone's like, oh, I'm gonna pose like her. I'm gonna pose like her. For her, that worked because she's so petite and it didn't look like she was flaring, right? So you want to find that middle ground. If you are going to, like, let's say you're super, super narrow and you do it a little bit, but it doesn't look like you're doing it, then that's cool. But if they can tell you're doing this, then you don't want to do it. But if you're cheating it a little bit and you just kind of open up just a little bit and cheat it, that's okay. You have to, if you're doing any of these little tricks, you have to look like you're not doing it. You have to look like it's just, that's how you look, right? So, because they don't want to see any force, So anyway, so in the front pose, the other thing with the feet, typically as a rule of thumb, I like this heel somewhat close to this front foot, never along the side of it. Somewhat close to creating that shoulder width balance too. So when we're looking for this, we're looking for an X frame. So wide up top, small in the middle. The knee will kind of match the shoulder width, never outside of it. The foot never outside of the shoulder width. So take two lines, draw them straight down, and that should be somewhere around where your feet and your knees are to create the X, right? So the waistline, it's gonna vary from girl to girl on how much profile you are. I have seen, last year there was a lot more opening up. This year I have seen a trend of some of the girls kind of switching a little bit back to the older profile look, but I don't know if that's gonna continue. But as of right now, it's kind of, everyone's finding their own balance right now. So there's no like set criteria. So anything else, Ashley, that I might have missed in the front?
I think that's all. Make sure that you're not looking down. I mean, that goes for any time you're posing. Like, you might see the judges down there. Don't do that. Look down with your eyes. Just make sure you're always, poised. And, I would say keep in mind how tall you are, right? So on stage, even if you're short, I want you to think tall. So think confident. Don't think scrunched up just to get a glute. And don't bend this knee either. I see a lot. Well, some people bend it a little bit and it looks okay, but that was kind of a thing that's kind of went out of style, like the whole knee bend like this to create more hamstring. It should be pretty much straight. If it bothers your knee, if it's locked out, that's something to keep in mind. But for most people, it should just be straight.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So let's go to the back pose then. Back pose is a lot easier. There's like almost no variance on the back pose. Like it's are you gonna, the only variance really in the back pose is gonna be, do you bend your knee a tiny bit, do you put your feet out a tiny bit, but you're all in like the same position. With bikini front posing, there are huge variances based on the ground. So this would be a lot easier. Harder to develop, because you gotta develop the glutes, right? But easier to pose it. So, okay, in the back pose, same thing, we're looking for good width. So shoulder width, rear delts, line up with the feet, okay? So we want to have that same X frame, so you have a small waist, you have wide shoulders, you have the feet equaling the shoulders on the width, or maybe inside it just a tiny bit, depending on how your glutes look. Depending on how hard you're sitting, how hard you're pushing, you're gonna have, the only variance is gonna be like your upper glute. Like if you're pushing a lot and you're bending your knee, you're kind of leaning forward, your upper glutes will flatten out. So you have to find a balance for you of where it's gonna work, and the judges do not want to see you leaning at all. Okay, so if you lean a little bit, to them, it's leaning a lot because they're below you, so they're getting a big lean, right? If you cheat it an inch or two, maybe girl by girl, but for the most part, Ashley is straight up in her poses, but that comes from her arch of her back. So that's something you want to work on is your flexibility. You should be able to, like a good rule of thumb is, one of my old posing coaches a long time ago taught me she put a foam roller behind her. She's like, I should be able to put my butt and my back on the wall and be able to fit. Well, for her, she was tall though, and put a foam roller, that was like her stand, a foam roller behind her. She's like, I never want to be fully arched and not have my shoulders against the wall. Right? That was like her rule. It works, but it just helps with your, making sure you're staying flexible and you're not doing this. So, anyway, let's go ahead and go back to the back pose. So Ashley has her hair nice and done today, but when she's competing, she would do it like this a little bit to show those shoulders.
Much more narrow.
Yeah, much more narrow.
Don't wear this kind of hair on stage. If it's covering your shoulders, that's a no-go.
Yeah, so if you look at, we'll do that. So look at her shoulders and how nice and pretty they look and how she has width, and then she does one of these and then where to go, right? It's just gone instantly. And the other thing too is you want to make sure your hair is not too long. If her hair was like down, like way down here, like it wouldn't show her glutes very good. It would make her glutes look smaller because her hair would be blocking the distance between her back and her glutes. If that makes sense. It creates like a curtain that hides her back, right? So the 3D effect is less when that happens. So it's going to be right to about here. And even if it goes down, but you can still see the outside of the lower back, that's fine too. But you want to at least see that 3D effect of it. So anyway, that's just something you're at the advantage. Take your extra time when you get that back pose. Like take the time. Like don't worry. If you feel it on your shoulder and you like did it and you're like, oh crap, it's on my shoulder, just do it again. It's fine. The judges don't care.
Yeah, I like to do it as I'm transitioning or getting into the pose. So like when I'm, for example, let's say I just stepped into it, I'm just gonna do this real quick, then get into it, rather than getting into it and then fixing it. Kind of just make it all one. Save some time.
Cool. So good shoulders on the back pose. Some people, there's a lot of different things people will do with their shoulders. If you have crazy shoulders, you might not do anything.
You want this.
Yeah, if you need help with the shoulders and weirdos, you might push on your hands like this and put pressure on them to create like that pop to your shoulders. We're not pinching the back, okay? Don't pinch, don't flex your traps. That happens sometimes too. Girls will try to flex their lats, their traps on accident, and then they don't understand why they have no width and why they can't get their rear delt to show. It's because they're like flexing their traps. Okay, so we'll look at that individually. In the back pose, any keys to what you're doing with your glutes, like how you're.
Yeah, so one thing I like to do, and this is like a me thing, so maybe it doesn't apply to you, but if it helps you, then that's great. The feeling of an RDL, right? I kind of describe the feeling of a back pose as at almost the end of an RDL. So you're like this, your knees aren't completely locked out, right? Because you never want to do that locked out. You're kind of just slightly like this, and then at the top you're like this. So that's like the feeling. I'm not flexing my glute, but I'm kind of putting my weight on my heels. So your weight should be on your heels, not your arch, not your toes. It should basically be your heels, but I'm not flexing anything really. And as far as like the toe placement, we should go over that too.
Yes.
Like the different.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and do the toe placement thing. Okay. Based on your quad development, right, is going to be how you kind of placing your quad development, also your glute development, how they look when you're posing, is going to be how wide your feet are. So she holds her feet at 11 and 1. Okay. So on a clock, 11 and 1. If you have like no quads and you have smaller legs, you might go, as far as 10 and 2, but that's like as far as you want to go. Okay, so then basically what's going to do, if you want to show it, if you're out farther, you're going to see more of the outside quads, the outside quad, okay? If you have big quads, you don't want to do that, right? So you can go as far as 12 on both, right? 11 and 1 is pretty standard, and that's going to just be the quad shape. Anything else on that I'm missing?
Yeah, also keep in mind your hip width. Some girls are hippier, some girls aren't. So that's another factor too. You probably don't want to do this if you have wider set hips. So maybe if you're a girl that has you know, those big quads, or you're a girl that has wide hips, maybe more forward facing with your toes is the best for you, just so it doesn't get too, because it's still going to have width. If you're, even if it's not your quads that are big, it's still your hips. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind.
Yeah, you don't want to have a lot of quad outside the glutes, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Your quads shouldn't exceed the width of your glutes.
Okay, so, and that's pretty much it in the back posing, okay? Questions before we move on to the posing on those things? Any basic questions? No? We did that good of a job? Okay. Perfect, this will be a successful class then. All right, so we'll go back to our classes, we'll start posing.
So you can go right now, I'm going to assume transitions are always a question for girls. Yeah. And then transitions are always a big one, we'll start there, okay? And then we'll go to walking and do the big shoulder.
Yeah.
Push is about, those who are left hip front posers. So push into the front glute. Like that is, right? Arch the back.
Grapple is not what I want to do, and that's number one, is keeping your hands hard so where you keep it, and you don't want to have it too far. So then you put a flat hold, and then you see what's up and then I would end up with where I feel weird. It's literally a difference of, I try to stay fine with your little spot right between the other and your hip is. You always feel like problems whenever you're on stage, the whole time.
Moment from the front, checking your feet, your rotation. So I'm gonna kind of quickly give you a critique here. We're gonna start on this side. Using Ashley always as your head judge, so I'm gonna look at you from that angle. Push the waist. You're gonna always go belly button away. If I ever tell someone to push your waist, what I'm picturing doing is pulling that hip across your body. You're always gonna pull that waist away. So when you're here, your foot placement, your elbow joint line up, I'm a very small person, so I always say about the structure. You're a little bit belly lower.
Are you on to lead or?
So from the front,
So this is the important part of the walk, the bikini walk. Actually, she'll argue with me on this, but I think she's one of the best, if not the best, front walker in the game. All right, so Savannah would be more of a, I guess you'd call it like more of like a sultry walker, right? More of like the Laura Lee, Maureen style. And then you have your like cute walkers, you have your athletic walkers, or like cute's like the more bouncy girls, right? You have your more athletic walkers, you have your more like sultry walkers, which seems to be more trendy. You'll see her walk and kind of, she's got one of the best walks. You see her footwork though? Look at her angle of her foot, of her heel, how it's coming out, right? So that's how she's getting her hips to move so much. And now she's also getting that pop, is how her foot movement is coming like this. Okay, so, right? Okay, so there's a little bounce to that step, it creates that width. What else are you doing that I'm not mentioning?
So I roll my shoulders, and then I like to imagine when I'm walking that it's like my knees are coming around. So like when I walk, it's like coming around. That's how I visualize it in my head, and I keep a lot of weight in my feet. And I always lead with my chest, so it's still tall. Like you don't want to drop your glutes, so everything is tall and like. So I step and like pop. Like if I, so I'm like rolling my shoulders, so your arms are like dead weight, but they're moving as your shoulders do the movement. So everything like very tight, my quads, and then just like a little movement of the hands are kind of going like this too.
the thing I'd say with her, what she's talking about with her knees, she does do that kind of roll on the side. Do it again if you will. Watch though how her leg actually still hits extension. You don't want to be tiptoeing if you were to do that and then you stay like this, and you have bent knees the whole way. You still want to go to a leg extension, which is where I see a lot of girls get tiptoed in their walks, and especially in heels, hard to walk in heels.
Cool. And then Ashley, if you can do your walk too.
Sure, I have a different style.
Yeah, I'll tell about the different styles.
Yeah.
Hers is more a cutie, athletic.
Bouncy.
Bouncy, yeah.
So if it's the front, a walk, it can be a little quicker. Is that what we're referring to, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah, front walk. And yeah, one thing I didn't mention, in the front walk, you can be, like, think of it as like fashion shows, the girls are like popping, right? Or like, they don't care about their steps, they're all hard. That's fine in the front walk. So like, don't think about the impact of your feet. You can be more bouncy, more, hit your feet harder. Back walk, totally different.
Right, because no one can see your glutes like if you're walking forward. So yes, just like you said, it's a little bouncier, a little quicker. For me, what I think of is I actually tried to think of walking on a straight line, but I kind of prompt my foot to kind of go like this rather than swing it, if that makes sense. So although I don't walk perfectly in a straight line, there's still some crossover, I try to visualize that, and with each step, I kind of just let my hips loose so that they can actually kind of pop like that. And then, just like Savannah said, I try not to use my arms. I just let the shoulders kind of do it, but I don't think I have quite as much shoulder rotation as Savannah. I guess most of my movement comes from like my hips, I guess. Just like letting them loose with each step slightly, but not too drastically because I don't want to be like, pop, 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 but just a little more loosey-goosey with it. So it would be more like. So it's a little different, So everyone has their own style. I think mine's less elaborate than Savannah's.
Hers is like a sultry walk. Yeah, it's like a different look.
Yeah.
You too. I did a sultry. I got the sultry. What are you talking about?
I missed it. Shoot.
I'm sure you'll see it again. All right. So that's gonna be the front walk. So what we're gonna do is we'll practice the front walk, and we're gonna walk from this way to that way, and then we can have like coaches in front of you guys. So we can both do that time. So now we can get back on the wall again.
And then you'll start to attach your bounce to it in your own rhythm, and it's going to take hundreds of times.
See how your comfort zone. Let's go for it. Oh, I'm just doing our group. We're all split up into groups now. We're going to go into our group again. Okay.
So really chin forward to your head. Okay. There you go. See how it has a little bit to go. And then you can slowly push your hips harder. There you go. Do whatever your thing was, right? Bouncing shoulders.
Alright, let's do it again. Group 2. So you know what I mean? So like you want to bring that energy, but when you're like actually running, you have all that adrenaline. So even in your practice, control the energy a little bit so it doesn't. So like slow down. Yeah, just control it. So take your time.
So she's arched. She's not dropping her glutes when you do this back walk. Huge part of it is keeping your back arched. Look at her footwork, where it's at. Look at how much her glutes are shaking when she impacts the floor. Very low impact, right? A lot of hip movement. Look at her foot, how it's coming out like this when she's doing it, right? She's rotating her hips, just like the front walk. She's rotating her hips, creating that sway. The steps are, I would say probably a little bit smaller on that back walk. You say they're a little bit smaller? Yeah. And I like them smaller just because if you do like a big step in the back walk, your glutes will flatten out. If you take a big step, your glutes are stretching. So we're trying to, that's why I keep them a little smaller on that back walk. Okay. Anything else that I'm missing there on you?
So one thing I like to think of as well too, as you walk to the back
On your knees a
stage.
little louder.
Do you? Oh, I'm sorry.
They're way down there.
So when you walk to the back, You still want to have movement with your upper body, maybe not as much with the lower body. With the front walk, you can really work the hips. But when you go into your walk to the back of the stage, you want to have like movement with your arms. So Savannah, where are you? You did a really good job of explaining this with the shoulder movement. So here's your arms as dead weight, and when you move your upper body, movement with the shoulders, and then keeping close to and more of I would say a flat walk. So you don't want to be like really picking up your heels when you move to the back of the stage, because that can create movement with your feet. So thinking it as more flat.
Show scenario, let's
All right,
go.
we're gonna do a show scenario. This is a big group, but honestly, if you guys work your way up to nationals, this would not be uncommon. If you went to like North Americans 2 years ago, this would be small. All right, so USA's 45 girls, C class, D class, E class, very normal. All right, so E class?
A class.
No, not A class. A class 25. 25. So, all right. So we're gonna do. We're gonna get on 2 A lines, but you're gonna be staggered. So you're gonna have a front line here, and you're gonna have a line behind them. Okay. Savannah, can you come here just to make sure we got that right? So there's an A line is like this. It goes at a diagonal. Okay. So this will be the advanced people will be here on these lines, and there's one over there too, way over there. And then the people who are not advanced, you can just so you can watch first. We'll have you behind them, because that's how it goes at nationals. Okay, it's a real scenario.
You want the other diagonal here?
Yes, please.
All right.
Make it a little wider, so we have some room to walk.
Okay. So somebody can do. I'm an angle with my body here.
I'm from G towards here.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have one line right front, angled,
Yeah.
everyone's in line.
Oh, triangle is your head judge.
And then the next line is the same thing, but behind them by a person behind them. You'll see this at nationals. This is not uncommon.
Yep. Oh yeah.
All right, so you girls are all on the A line. This is the Inline Pose. If you girls don't know what so it's basically your front pose, but it's towards the middle of the judges. Okay, as we've all talked about in the class before. Just to make this simple. You're good. Obviously, this isn't my pose, but let's just say this is my best front pose. Okay, so this is my best front pose. Where I'm out on the line, and Anya's the head judge, right? I'm always just kind of slightly turning towards her. Okay, I'm here to her, and if I'm over here, then I'm over here to her. Okay, so when you're positioning yourself on the line, make sure all right. Okay, so this is the dance group. We're just doing the show scenario. We're going to walk you all through the show. This is how it will go. And anyone ever seen the show before? Ever seen it? Do you want to watch? Do you want to watch? If anyone doesn't feel comfortable participating, I know there's some nerves, so it's okay. You can come and watch. Don't judge me. Yeah. Ladies in the front. Perfect. Okay, you guys can go back to your line now. Be careful with that little ridge. All right, so now you guys are the initial judges. It's a long time, right? That's nationals. If you work your way up, it's probably going to happen, okay? More times than not, you're going to have to move the best girls to the middle so that all the judges can see them best. So you're trying to get to the middle. It's not always that way. For example, if let's say there's one really good girl on the left, and there's 3 good girls on the right, or like second, third, and fourth, they're way over here on the right. It's just easier to move number 1 over to here, and like the girl in the middle thinks she's number 1, but she might be last. But it's like that's just scenario. Usually it's just to the middle. Okay. All right. And then also that way. Okay, that's good. Very good. Ladies, go ahead and face the rear. They think they have the best in the middle right now. Okay, let's face the rear. Number 5, where is that third? Number 8, where? Very good. All right. Who else hasn't walked? Okay. Center number 3. 8. Okay. All right. And ladies, face the rear. This will be the last walk. And walk back to that back line. Okay, and that is basically it, guys. That's how the show is going to go. You guys have questions on how to go? No? No? right, so what we're gonna do before we leave, let's get a group picture, yeah? Yeah.